kurang bisan wai jangama kurang bisan ya matrenelo iyan dem marong iyan den jai kai wai iyan dem marong suma iyan dem marong kai wai kurang bisan wai jangama mernala big wajal sumanje ke na zed yo ya maton iyan kilime na fonye bang fan tv iyan kilime na fonye bang fan tv iyan kilime na fonye bang.
A slight change of activities. Instead of Al Mahfouz coming, you have Dr. Bojang. Dr. Bojang has some engagement somewhere. Of course, at the university, we are always busy. His service is needed somewhere by the administration, of course, and by the students' body and other organizations or other stakeholders in the university. So he has to go. As a result, he has to do his presentation quickly. And so let's give him the floor.
Please, I beg your indulgence. I woke up this morning with a very, very discomfort on my face. Honorable Chair, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, my general theme is traditional knowledge and history for disaster warning and mitigation in pre-colonial West Africa. And the specific theme that I narrow it down on traditional musical instruments and town criers. Points of discussion: background, overview of dissemination process of natural and human-made disasters in pre-colonial West Africa, the role of traditional musical instruments in disaster warnings and mitigations, drums, gongs, and trumpets, animal and metal horns, the role of communities in information dissemination during disaster, custodians of traditional environmental knowledge and early warning signs, traditional cohesion and support networks during and after disaster, role of women in disaster warning responses and preparedness, conclusion, and way forward. Background: the pre-colonial West African peoples had established highly advanced civilization with distinctive political, economic, and social structures. These civilizations influenced the founding of pre-colonial empires such as Ghana, Mali, Songhai, Asante, Hausa, Wolof empires, etc., that further led to the emergence of more advanced civilization. As a result, trade routes were also developed between West and North Africa, such as the Tagaza-Timbuktu or Western routes, the Gadamis Air or Central route, and the Fezzan Kawar or Eastern route. They created distinctive traditional communication methods that were essential in spreading information to communities all over West Africa in disaster warnings, mitigation strategies, and other significant societal news. They also developed advanced knowledge and strategies in disaster warnings and mitigation based on their understanding of the natural environment and seasonal patterns well before the advent of modern scientific knowledge in disaster mitigation and prevention. During disasters, several traditional or conventional technologies were used to inform and communicate with people over long distances. Traditional musical instruments played a crucial role in disseminating information, including warning against impending disasters. Furthermore, oral tradition of the people offer insight into the wider communication role of traditional instruments in the lack of written evidence. Traditional town criers also played a vital role in the communication and dissemination of information, especially in times of emergencies and disasters. Overview of dissemination process of natural and human-made disasters in pre-colonial West Africa. Natural calamities can be classified under floodings, droughts, famine, wildfires, storms, epidemics, poor harvest, crop failures, disease, outbreaks, etc. Human-made disasters can be classified as invasion or war by neighbors, raids, conflict over land, fire outbreaks, health hazards, etc. West Africans use musical instruments to create a quick communication system during emergencies and disasters throughout the pre-colonial era. Musical instruments were an integral part of the society, conveying messages over long distance due to their ability to mimic the tonal patterns of spoken languages. Drums, gongs, trumpets, animal horns, elephant tugs, flutes, brass or metal horns, and so forth were among these musical instruments. Also very important verbal cues in this process were traditional griots, town criers, and traditional comedians. Women groups and organizations also shared vital information on disaster preparedness, survival strategies, and healing through the indigenous knowledge system by virtue of their role as priestesses, healers, and herbalists in the society. The role of traditional musical instruments in disaster warnings and mitigations. West African culture is deeply rooted in music, and because of their loud and distinctive sounds, musical instruments were useful for delivering important messages over great distances. They conveyed important information, including warnings related to natural disasters or community emergencies. Music is an essential component of West African culture and were useful for transmitting important signals over great distances. Drumming patterns conveyed information swiftly across vast distance, much faster than human messengers on foot. In addition to warning, people seek to shelter from impending disasters. Drum beats also served as a means of mobilizing people for collective action to fight. In addition to warning people to seek shelter from impending disaster, drum beats also serve as a means of mobilizing people for collective action to fight fires, strengthen flood defenses, or coordinate relief efforts, as well as to gather warriors during conflict or evacuate vulnerable groups or minimize casualties and damage. The talking drums among the Wolof, Tama, Mandinka, Junjung, or Tabala were perfect for long-distance communication since they could produce tonal sounds that were very, very effective for conveying complicated messages. Various communication tools in pre-colonial Africa. At the top left side, you have the animal horn. Below that, you have the trumpet. And at the right top, you have the tabala, and below that, you have the gong. For instance, the tabala drum, when the beating sound is slow motion, tung, 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 slow motion, that means there is calamity, but it's not an emergency. Someone died, a very, very high profile person died in the village. But when it is tung, 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 there is calamity and it is an emergency. But the emergency is not life-threatening. But when it is tung, 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 it is calamity and life-threatening. Wherever you are, come to the epicenter. Calamity and life-threatening. Perhaps someone has drowned or fell into the well, or fire outbreak and people are inside the house. So those are the communication system through drum beats. Animal and metal horns. The sound of the animal horn, particularly cow or antelope horns, could travel great distances, making it an ideal tool for reaching communities far from the epicenter of an event. The sound pattern of the rhythm will indicate the type of danger or the urgency of the situation. Animal and metal horns were essential instruments in warning communities of impending attacks or invasion through a specific pattern that alerted people to arm themselves or evacuate. While sentinels, when we say sentinels, we said guards, soldiers on guards, were positioned at key points to defend the community from enemy forces. Scouts were used to observe enemy movements during conflicts in many West African societies. It was also easier for them to react swiftly to danger signs through the horns. The sound pattern or rhythm of these horns indicated the type of danger or the urgency of the emergency, such as floods, droughts, or fire, which was not only just a call for action against disaster, but as an invocation for spiritual protection and guidance. Gongs, trumpets, and horns played significant roles as drums. The Ikwi gong of the Igbo in Nigeria is a hollowed wood that is struck with a stick and can produce different rhythms that could communicate specific themes to people, be it approaching storm, invasion, or otherwise. The Kakaki long metal trumpets of the Hausa were used to call people together during droughts or famine to rally for immediate action, discuss strategies for mitigation, and relief for people to take protective action. The Igala people of Nigeria used okakachi, a long metal trumpet, in pre-colonial times to communicate to the people about good and bad times depending on the tonal sound produced by the trumpeters. The Igala oral tradition has it that it was the effective medium of communicating directly to the people about the impending war or calling meetings for major decisions bordering on emergencies and impending dangers. Yoruba flutes warn of approaching disasters like floods, hurricane, and other natural hazards by sending signals with distinct melodies or patterns that various groups will understand. Demanding people of Mali and Guinea also use flutes in community messaging, especially in responses to natural disasters of any sort. The role of communities in information dissemination during disaster. In pre-colonial West African society, villages and towns spread across a wide area of land and were organized around kings and chiefs who had a responsibility to protect the land and the people. During natural disasters, leaders in conjunction with the Council of Elders will issue directives that convey to the people vital information, especially during large-scale emergencies that required immediate action from the community. The information to the people played an indispensable role in the transmission of communication on how to prepare against an impending disaster, respond to it, and take safety precautions after it. To swiftly relay information across the community, town criers were deployed in mobilizing resources to enhance the participation of able-bodied men and women to mitigate against disasters. The community responded especially when life was at stake, such as fighting fire outbreak, constructing flood defenses, evacuating vulnerable people, or any other form of rescue operations. When cholera, yellow fever, smallpox, or other epidemics were spreading, town criers were used to disseminate information about the disease symptoms, how to quarantine patients, how to take prescribed medications, safety measures to prevent the spread of the disease, how to care for the sick, and how to avoid contaminating food and water. Custodians of traditional environmental knowledge and early warning signs. Understanding the environment and recognizing early warning signs of natural disasters played a crucial role in managing and disseminating information. Advanced warnings and guidance prior to disaster was pertinent to the knowledge of the environment and recognizing early warning signs. Custodians of environmental knowledge, through their closer interaction with the environment, was able to indicate impending disasters through observations of change in the weather patterns, animal behaviors, or celestial phenomena. At community gatherings, disaster-related information about past experiences and advice on how to prepare for or respond to similar events were spread to reinforce the community's collective action. In cases where disaster was seen as retribution from gods or ancestors, spiritual leaders advised on the necessary rituals, sacrifices, or ceremonies that involved the entire community to appease the gods or ancestors. Traditional cohesion and support networks during and after disaster. Maintaining social cohesiveness, mobilizing and sharing resources, arranging mutual aid, and assisting communities in the post-disaster reconstruction all depended on a networking strategy to mobilize and share resources, promote social cohesion, plan mutual aid, and assist communities in rebuilding after a disaster. A networking system was essential both during and after the event. Young people were taught how to spread information over great distances, whether it was by riding horses or donkeys, or walking across dangerous terrain to warn communities of upcoming calamities, or by communicating safety guidelines or ways to appease the gods. Traditional knowledge was passed down from elders to the younger generations in a wide range of areas, such as technique to mitigate disaster, food preservation, understanding natural phenomena, and how to react to them. In cases such as drought, pest infestation, crop failure, or other natural threats, early warnings were crucial. And as such, youths were mobilized to protect the community and participate in the physical defense of the community. Musicians and artists serve as a medium of communication through their performance in conveying historical knowledge of past diseases, the spiritual significance of these events, and communal responses and mitigation to reinforce societal values and collective resilience. The role of women in disaster warnings, responses, and preparedness. While traditional roles of women varied across West Africa, however, their leadership role in various aspects of society have common themes in community survival, resilience, and preparedness during times of crisis and disaster. Women serve as midwives, traditional healers, herbalists, environmental specialists, health advisors, and agricultural producers, and provided essential information about preventive measures in all aspects of emergencies, treatment during epidemics, and sources of food during crop failures. Women often communicated early signs of poor harvest or droughts in the community due likely to their knowledge of the land, weather patterns, and crop cycles that enabled them to forecast food shortages and organize communal responses to emergencies. Their ability to form intricate networks through spiritual associations enabled them to exchange information, coordinate mutual aid, and organize communal labor groups to protect the community through collective resilience and societal values. Women were also the facilitators and custodians of indigenous knowledge systems that provided long-term environmental and disaster-related insight in food production, distribution, and management. Indeed, the women's knowledge system and social networks contributed to the resilience of communities of West Africa in the face of natural disasters in the pre-colonial era. Conclusion. Based on the aforesaid, the following conclusions can be reached. It can be concluded that long before the introduction of modern scientific knowledge, traditional knowledge and practices played a vital role in rapid communication, prevention, and responses in coordination and mobilization during and after disasters and emergencies. Musical instruments do not only symbolize entertainment, but they played a central role in disaster information in pre-colonial West Africa by providing fast, reliable, and culturally embedded method of warning communities, organizing responses, and facilitating communication over long distances. Disaster alerts and emergency signals were not only facilitated by drums, but other musical instruments such as horns, flutes, and trumpets all help communities through long-distance signals to prepare for, react to, and recover from natural disasters. It is also established that women also play an indispensable role in disseminating information across communities, including disaster warnings, mitigations, responses, healings and survival strategies, cultural and religious guidance, food production and preservation, especially during periods of environmental instability. Therefore, pre-colonial West Africa possessed advanced knowledge and spatial systems based on knowledge of the environment, seasonal patterns, climate variability, long-distance signaling, and information transfer before and after catastrophe and disaster. Way forward. The way forward will be the documentation and preservation of traditional knowledge with specific focus on the following suggestions. 1. The necessity of digitizing traditional knowledge and making it available to research and education, integrating it into the educational system through community awareness and cooperation, and being able to record and decipher environmental indicators such as plant health, rainfall patterns, and animal behavior. 2. To be familiar with the traditional indicators of climate change, such as change in wind direction, humidity, or the behavior of animals like birds that serve as early warning signals for approaching storms, and to combine observations of natural phenomena with meteorological data to confirm predictions of drought or storms. 3. Training younger community members to recognize these signs could increase local level preparedness and further incorporate local perspective and traditional approaches to modern tools and knowledge for disaster response and mitigation. 4. Interactive exhibits and workshops, such as this one, can enhance the experiences of participants by giving them an understanding of the traditional historical communication system and the role of traditional instruments as communication tools, disaster warning responses, and precautionary steps in terms of disaster and fire outbreaks. 5. Support from the government and NGOs in terms of policy development, digital preservation, innovation, and collaboration with women groups, youths, the elderly, oral traditionalists, artists, and technologists, preserving the sounds, tunes, and rhythms and their meanings in contemporary context and making them accessible to entire Africa. Thank you for listening.